A couple days ago, I asked you, do you care about the vice presidential debate? And over 60% of you said yes. So, in this English lesson, we will take a look at a news clip from last night's presidential debate. The debate was between JD Vance, who is on the same ticket as Donald Trump. He is a Republican, against Tim Walz. He is on the same ticket as Kamala Harris. He is a Democrat. If you are new here, my name is Brent. I have been teaching English in the United States for over 20 years. And after we watch this news clip, we are going to talk about all of the English phrasal verbs, the idioms, and the advanced vocabulary you will need if you want to take the IELTS or the TOEFL, or maybe you just want to have a conversation about politics in English. Let's get to that clip now.
Let's now turn to the race for the White House. Vice presidential nominees Tim Walz and JD Vance went head-to-head last night in a high-stakes debate.
Turn to. We already have an English phrasal verb. What does that mean? Well, it means two different things: to focus on or to start discussing a new topic. In the news report, they said they are going to turn to another news reporter. But in the debate last night, let's say they were talking about abortion, which they did, the moderators or the people running the debate could say, okay, now we are going to turn to immigration, another big topic for this year's presidential race. For each of these terms, I will have a picture for you, I will have a definition, and I will use it in a sentence. Let's look at turning to in a sentence. During the debate, JD Vance turned to immigration issues, shifting the focus away from the economy. Now that is just an example sentence. JD Vance likes to focus on the economy. Donald Trump and JD Vance think they do better with the economy than Harris and Walz will. High stakes, a lot of pressure. It means a situation where there is a lot to gain or lose. I know some people around the world do not like gambling at all. I don't blame you. I find it scary to do, but some people really like it. And it looks like this person in the picture might be doing some high stakes gambling. Look at those poker chips he has in front of him. It looks like he could win or lose a lot of money. Let's use high stakes in a sentence. The debate had high stakes because both JD Vance and Tim Walz wanted to win over undecided voters. I have talked about undecided voters in previous English lessons. I've also talked about these two men. I will leave a link to that English lesson at the end of this one. Also, if you are finding this English lesson useful, do you mind hitting that like button? And if this is your first time here, please go ahead and subscribe so you never miss another English lesson.
Let's now turn to the race for the White House. Vice presidential nominees Tim Walz and JD Vance went head-to-head last night in a high-stakes debate.
Yeah, this was the first time the two candidates have faced off and will likely be the final debate for both campaigns. WCNC Charlotte's Alice Barr is in Washington with the latest.
Good morning, Sarah. A lot of the analysis is calling this a night of Midwest nice.
Midwest nice is the next one they talk about. But I think we need to talk about what the Midwest is first. In that map, you will see the red part. Well, that is the Midwest. We're talking about states like Minnesota, that is where Tim Walz is from, and Ohio, that is where JD Vance is from. They are both Midwesterners, we would say. They're from the Midwest. Well, what is Midwest nice? It's a stereotype. So not everyone who lives in the Midwest is nice, but stereotype means that most people from the Midwest are polite and friendly. sometimes too much. A couple weeks ago, I visited the Midwest for the first time in a long time. I went to the state of Wisconsin. Trust me, people were so nice there. I loved meeting new people from Wisconsin. I can't wait to go back. Let's use Midwest nice in an example sentence. Tim Walz tried to stay Midwest nice during the debate, even when JD Vance criticized his policies. We've talked about criticize before in other English lessons. It just means to say like bad things about something or question it.
A lot of the analysis is calling this a night of Midwest nice, with the nominees frequently highlighting points of agreement, though deep divides over policy were on clear display.
Frequently. Frequently. Is that hard to say? It means happening often and regularly. That's even harder to say, I think. Throughout the debate, Tim Walz frequently mentioned his support for healthcare reforms. Reforms are changes. I found it difficult to find a picture for frequently, so let me use this example that is not true. I frequently have mango juice with my breakfast. Not true. I usually have a very unhealthy energy drink, but if you regularly have, say, coffee with your breakfast, you probably have it most days out of the week, maybe 5 to 6 days. I think that would be frequently, maybe 4 days. It is tough to put a number on frequently. It is more than occasionally, though.
In a largely civil debate, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz and Ohio Senator JD Vance frequently referenced common ground while sparring over profound policy disagreements.
A civil debate. What does that mean? A respectful discussion where people do not insult or shout at each other. And compared to the debate between Harris and Trump, or Trump and Biden, this was a pretty civil debate. I don't think there was any name calling. Civil is another way to say nice, most of the time. But then there is also a civil war, which is not nice at all. A civil war is when one country fights against itself. The United States had an American Civil War back in the 1860s. Despite their differences, JD Vance and Tim Walz managed to have a civil debate without yelling. That is just an example sentence, but I think it's true. Profound. Look at that picture. That man looks like he is in deep thought. Very deep or important. Profound. JD Vance made a profound statement about the future of the country at the end of the debate. They both did. That's just an example. Maybe this picture relates to the example sentence. He had a profound thought while watching the movie.
In a largely civil debate, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz and Ohio Senator JD Vance frequently referenced common ground while sparring over profound policy disagreements on immigration.
You've got to stop the bleeding. You've got to re-implement Donald Trump's border policies, build the wall, re-implement deportations.
Stop the bleeding. It's an idiom. In the picture, you can see some blood. It looks like somebody was bleeding. Stop the bleeding has nothing to do with blood. Instead, it means to take action to prevent a bad situation from getting worse. Right now, in the United States, we have a problem with inflation. The cost of everything keeps going up and up. You probably have the same problem in your country. I hope it's not worse than the United States, but I know there are countries where it is worse. An example for stop the bleeding might be we need to stop inflation before it gets even worse. Here's another example. Tim Walz said we need to stop the bleeding by fixing the economy before more jobs are lost. This is a tough one, I think. Re-implement. Re-implement. Re at the beginning of a word almost always means again. Maybe you are reading a book and there is a part you don't understand. You might reread it or read it again. So re-implement means to start using something again that was used before. Let's look at an example. JD Vance promised to re-implement stricter border policies if elected. Many Americans are worried about how many people are crossing the southern border coming into the United States from Mexico. Some people say it was harder to get across the border when Trump was president. Others say the opposite. But JD Vance is saying we need to get stricter when it comes to border crossings. We need to re-implement Trump's plan. He is saying that Biden got rid of that. Deportations. What does that mean? Well, you see in the picture, there is an airplane. Deportations are forcing someone to leave a country because they are not legally allowed to stay. This example sentence is true. JD Vance said there should be more deportations for people who enter the U.S. illegally.
You've got to stop the bleeding. You've got to re-implement Donald Trump's border policies, build the wall, re-implement deportations.
Governor Walz bringing up the tanked bipartisan border bill.
Donald Trump said no, told them to vote against it because it gives him a campaign issue. When you don't want to solve it, you demonize it.
We are going to talk about the verb tank or tanked, but let's talk about two other tanks first. Let's look at this tank first. It's a thing. You might hear it called a fish tank, but it's a glass container where fish are kept. This is just an example sentence about the debate. This did not happen at all. Tim Walz joked that he doesn't want the economy to feel like a fish tank where no one can escape. We have another tank. This is used for war. A large, heavily armed military vehicle. Again, this did not happen. JD Vance compared the government's power to a tank, saying it needs to be controlled. And I don't think that is quite true. Republicans often believe in smaller government. They believe that government should not have so much control over people's lives compared to Democrats. But for a Republican, it seems like JD Vance isn't as opposed to big government as some of his other Republicans are. But let's talk about how it was used in the newscast. Tanked means failed or performed very poorly. Some analysts, those are people who study information, felt that Tim Walz tanked in the debate when he couldn't answer a question on taxes. There was also a part where he couldn't answer a question on when he visited China. It seems like he might have lied about that. But hey, all politicians lie, right? Some more than others. Please let me know in the comments. I am curious. Who do you think lies more, Donald Trump or Kamala Harris? Let's use tanked outside of the debate. Let's use it with English learning. How did you do on your English exam? Oh, I tanked it. Another way to say you didn't do so well. On the screen right now, I have a picture of a demon. It's almost like a devil. But demonize is a verb, meaning to make someone or something seem evil. JD Vance accused Tim Walz of trying to demonize his ideas on immigration.
Donald Trump said no, told them to vote against it because it gives him a campaign issue. When you don't want to solve it, you demonize it.
Pivoting to Trump-Vance false claims about Haitian migrants in Springfield, Ohio, that led to a dispute over fact-checking and muted mics.
If you have watched the TV show Friends in English, you might know what pivot,
Pivot
what pivoting means. It means changing direction in a conversation to focus on something else, or turning a piece of furniture so it will fit up a staircase. During a tough question, Tim Walz was good at pivoting the conversation back to healthcare. For this next one, I want to look at a map first. Haitian was talked about during the debate and in the newscast. Let's take a look at where the country of Haiti is located. Not too far from the United States. You can't quite see the United States on that map. Let's make it a little bigger. Well, you can just see Florida a little bit. It is right above Cuba, close to Mexico, Honduras, Venezuela. It shares an island with the country of the Dominican Republic. Haitian is an adjective describing someone or something from Haiti. The definition says a person from Haiti, but you could also love Haitian food. Tim Walz talked about Haitian immigrants and how the U.S. should support them. I'll play a clip right now, but during the last debate, former President Trump said that Haitian immigrants in Ohio were eating people's pets.
They're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. And this is what's happening in our country.
Many people did not like him saying that.
Pivoting to Trump-Vance false claims about Haitian migrants in Springfield, Ohio, that led to a dispute over fact-checking and muted mics.
Fact-checking. We've talked about how politicians like to lie. Fact-checking can be useful. It's checking to make sure statements are true or false. After the debate, news stations were busy fact-checking claims made by JD Vance and Tim Walz. Muted mics. What does that mean? When microphones are turned off so no one can speak. If someone takes too much time during a debate, their mic could be muted or their microphone could be muted, meaning they can still talk, but no one will hear what they say. The moderators used muted mics to make sure JD Vance and Tim Walz didn't interrupt each other. But they were being Midwest nice, so that didn't happen too often.
Pivoting to Trump-Vance false claims about Haitian migrants in Springfield, Ohio, that led to a dispute over fact-checking and muted mics. Abortion, another focal point. Senator Vance saying Republicans need to earn back voter trust on the issue.
The proper way to handle this, as messy as democracy sometimes is to let voters make these decisions, let the individual states make their abortion policy.
How can we as a nation say that your life and your rights, as basic as the right to control your own body, is determined on geography?
The nominees trading barbs over the economy.
Trading barbs. There's some barbed wire in the picture. That's what we call it in English. Trading barbs means exchanging sharp or hurtful comments. JD Vance and Tim Walz were trading barbs during the debate about the handling of the COVID pandemic.
The nominees trading barbs over the economy.
Kamala Harris's atrocious economic record, which has made gas, groceries, and housing unaffordable for American citizens.
I love to say this word, atrocious. Atrocious. Extremely bad or unpleasant. JD Vance called the current state of the economy atrocious and blamed Tim Walz for it. That's not true. Tim Walz is just the governor of Minnesota right now, one of our states. He can't control the entire country's economy. It's just an example sentence.
Kamala Harris's atrocious economic record, which has made gas, groceries, and housing unaffordable for American citizens.
Kamala Harris's day one was Donald Trump's failure on COVID that led to the collapse of our economy.
In another flashpoint, Senator Vance refusing to acknowledge former President Trump lost the 2020 election.
Tim, I'm focused on the future. Did Kamala Harris censor Americans from speaking their mind in the wake of the 2020 COVID situation?
That is a damning non-answer.
The candidates fighting for an edge in likely the final debate before Election Day.
The debate stayed largely focused on domestic policy.
You will often hear domestic policy and foreign policy in English. Let's talk about what domestic policy is. Government decisions about things happening inside the country. Foreign policy, everything that happens outside of the country. Things like the war in Ukraine and the war in Israel. The debate covered domestic policy topics like education, healthcare, and the economy.
The debate stayed largely focused on domestic policy, but the nominees did weigh in on the spiraling conflict in the Middle East.
Weigh in. Weigh in. We have a couple different ways to spell weigh in English. This one is spelled like that. Weigh in. To give an opinion on a discussion or debate. Tim Walz weighed in on the immigration discussion, calling for more humane policies. If you treat someone in a humane way, you treat them gently, you treat them kindly. Spiraling. Spiraling. In the picture is a spiral staircase. So it's kind of shaped like a circle as it goes down. Spiraling means getting worse and out of control. JD Vance said the national debt, that is pronounced debt. I know there is a B, you just don't hear it. JD Vance said the national debt was spiraling and needed urgent attention. If something is urgent, it needs to be done right now.
But the nominees did weigh in on the spiraling conflict in the Middle East, just hours after Iran's missile strikes into Israel, both pointing to the need for steady leadership, though of course they sharply disagree over who can provide it.
Sharply disagree. Sharply, it is a good adverb right there. Sharply. To strongly disagree with someone. JD Vance and Tim Walz sharply disagreed on how to handle immigration reform. That's it. I hope your English is now better after watching this entire English lesson. Great job. If you're looking for more English, right down there is another English lesson I did about these two men. A little background on them so you can know them a little bit better. Thank you so much for watching. See you next time.